coming to you live from Music City, USA, aka Nashville, Tennessee. This is the ALLAnal podcast with Sebastian Starr. I'm your host, Sebastian Starr, and today we are going to discuss the most recent, brand spanking new, fresh as a pack horror film by Ryan Coogler, Sinners, starring Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld. Now, before we dive into the specifics of what I wanted to discuss, I want to make it very, very clear. This is going to be a bit of a spoiler alert. I don't think that I can go into this episode and talk about it in detail like this without spoiling some of it. So apologies in advance if you haven't seen it. Again, it was officially released this past Friday, the 18th. My family and I, all of my siblings and my father, we all went to the early showing on Thursday night. So Thursday night we get to the movies at like 7 o'clock for one of the earlier showings for it, and honestly, truly, I went into it with the expectation that I was going to be horrified, terrified, and anxious. And I will say that as far as those three emotions go, it definitely hit very, very hard for all three of those emotions for me. Having said that, overall ranking, I give it about a 9.5 out of 10. Nothing to keep it from being a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. There's just itty bitty details that I kind of wish I could have gotten more of that I didn't get. But I'm just one person. Honestly, truly, the movie was phenomenal, fantastic, wonderful. I've personally never seen anything like it as far as horror movies go, because the typical cliche for a horror movie is you have main character, you may have a group of friends, somebody in that group does something really, really stupid that subsequently causes the entire party to either turn against each other or just bad shit to start happening. And when the bad shit starts happening, the monster is revealed at some point, and it's a fight for your life, and then that's pretty much how it goes. That's the basic general formula of how horror movies run and operate. But this was done very creatively to the point where you don't even realize that the stupid shit has already started to kind of set its piece on the board. And so when shit finally hits the fan, it still kind of throws you because you don't really know what to expect. And you go into it with, this mindset of, okay, it's a vampire movie, right? It's set in the Jim Crow era, so it's going to be a lot of, heavy racial, imagery, and it's going to be a lot of heavy racism comments and things being said like that. But you also don't want it to feel like Django Unchained, right? You don't want it to just be oversaturated with racism. You understand we're in this time period, we're in this era of, black people being diluted to the tiniest speckle on the scale, the grand scheme of things. And you don't want it to feel like it's racially powered. But when you think about the cast, the crew, the direction, the writing, it absolutely is. But it also kind of asks that trick question, what would vampires in the Jim Crow era look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? And I think Ryan Coogler did a phenomenal job with taking that question and answering it in a visual spectacle for the entire world to enjoy. I feel like this was a very profound, deep, and emotional piece of art. There were a lot of moments that honestly made me a little uncomfortable, only because, again, I was seeing this movie with my father was sitting right next to me, and there are some points where there's a lot of sex stuff going on, and there's a lot of this and there's a lot of that, and I'm just like, I'm sitting next to I'm sitting next to my father. This is making me uncomfortable, not because of what's going on in the scene, but because of who I'm with going to go see it. If I was sitting next to one of my siblings, it wouldn't even have been a big deal. But so that was just unsettling because of who I was with. But if you look past all of that, the general story, and I'm going to get into the story here in a second, I promise. The general story is so well written. The story was so well presented. Everything fell into place so perfectly. Like I said, the only thing that's really keeping me from giving it that extra 0.5 is that I wish we were able to spend more time with some of the characters. Some of the characters were so great and they developed so well, and I wanted to really connect with them more. I wanted to see more of them. I wanted to hear more of them. I wanted to watch their interactions with other people happen more frequently, and I just didn't get that from a lot of who I really wanted to see. But to make up for that, the characters that they did put front and center showed the fuck out. They did their thing. They made the movie. It was great. It was phenomenal. So with all that being said, I think Ryan Coogler definitely deserves to go on the list of like great directors, those with the cinematic vision and the perspective and being able to take your personal beliefs, feelings, influences, experiences, whatever you want to call them, and display them for the world. Art imitating life, life imitating art. I think that Ryan Coogler absolutely belongs in that conversation. When you think of great directors who are able to capture their voice and put it on display in a positive light for the rest of the world to see, I think Ryan Coogler has done that extremely well. And this movie, it's an original concept. It's not a, based on a true story like Fruitvale Station. It's not a spinoff of a franchise like Creed. It's not based off a comic book like Black Panther. It's its own unique, original concept idea. Obviously, it pulls influences from other horror movies, right? You watch and you get that Dusk Till Dawn vibe, especially with the vampires kind of berating in on their little juke joint. You definitely get, from Dusk Till Dawn type shit with it. So it's obviously inspired by other great horror movies and examples of, vampires in the media. And again, I'm gonna get to that here in a second, but I think that the idea and concept of this entire movie was so unique and well written, and it spoke to so many different levels of Black culture without trying too hard to make it feel like it was speaking too hard for Black culture. And I want to just point out an example. There's a scene in the movie, again, spoiler alert. There's a scene in the movie where the young man, his name is Sammy. This was his first feature film, by the way. So kudos to my man who played Sammy. He did an absolute fantastic job. And I think he's a musician in real life because they showed a clip of him afterwards really playing his guitar and really singing. So kudos to him because he did his thing for showskis. There's a scene in the movie where Sammy, who's pretty much the main character of this movie, is playing his guitar. And there's a part in the beginning where the voodoo lady, her name is Annie, she is saying how music some people are born blessed with a gift and or a curse that they can produce music that will conjure spirits from past to present to future. They have a way of bringing people together with the music that they can conjure. It's almost like a form of magic. And that same type of monologue was repeated in this particular scene. This was like smack dab in the middle of the movie, by the way. Like right before shit started to hit the fan was when this part came up. So he's in the middle of the juke joint that they've put together. He's singing, he's dancing, he's playing the guitar. Everyone around him just starts to feel the power that he possesses over the soul and blues that he's singing with his guitar. And then slowly you start seeing different genre musicians kind of fall into this party. So you have like the black rock star from like the 70s with the electric guitar and the aesthetically pleasing costume, very androgynous, I think is the word that I'm looking for. And then you pan to another side of the room and there's a DJ turning on the turntables, doing like hip hop house party music. You turn a little bit more, you got the mumble rappers coming in, and then you turn a little bit more, you got the hood rat twerk music coming in, and then you turn some more, you pan around some more, and then there's starts to get different cultures. So it's different African tribe dancers playing the drums and dancing with their, symbolic wardrobe. You have the ancient Asian community start to come in with their instruments, and they're playing their instruments and they're doing all of that. And he is playing in the middle of this room and all the music starts to kind of come together. And then they show the outside of the juke joint and it's burnt to the ground. It's like, and all of these people are still creating their music. So they show the building burning and the music is just blaring out from every single direction. And the beautiful thing about that, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of confused me at first. I was a little confused in the beginning. And then I started to realize, this is all of the spirits from past to present to future coming together and awakening from the sound of the music that Sammy is playing. And unfortunately, that also conjured the demons that he accidentally summoned, which then leads us to the clique of vampires that try to infiltrate the juke joint. So that scene was very, very important, I think, for the community. And it was a beautiful representation of how someone can take their music, take their art, and bring so many different forms and cultures and types of people together. The opposing side of that is, even though you are capable of bringing people together, you can also conjure the demons that nobody wants anything to do with. And that's kind of where the story begins, really, where the conflict of the story kind of begins at that moment. So that was just an example of how Ryan Coogler was able to visualize this culturally significant moment and make it on display for the entire world to see. So that was just one really good example. Now, I'm going to just dive in very, very briefly to some of the characters. And again, I'm trying to keep the spoilers to a minimum. I don't want to ruin it too much for people, but I have to spoil something in order to get my point across. So let's start off with the hot topic, all right? Michael B. motherfucking Jordan. Michael B. Jordan playing a set of twins is crazy, but he did a great job. Now, the twins in question are named Smoke and Stack. They are the Smoke Stack twins. Now, again, I went to this movie with my siblings and my brothers and my father. One of my brothers was like, oh, we got one twin wearing red, the other twin wearing blue. That's a shout out to the Crip and Blood gangs from, because you know, Ryan Coogler's from LA, or he's from Oakland, but he's from California. And I thought to myself, okay, well, that makes sense, right? But also, maybe it's a double entendre. So in addition to it being a calling card to the Crip and Blood gangs of Los Angeles, California, in writing, in stories, in movies, you often display your good characters, your good guys, wearing blue, and the villains or the bad guys are often wearing red. A really good example of this is in Beauty and the Beast. The writers said that they wanted Belle dressed in blue in the beginning to showcase that she was the good, pure, clean soul of the community. She's the only person who wears blue like that. And Gaston is wearing red to showcase that he is the villain, he is the antagonist, he is the bad guy, he's a narcissist, right? So that's just an example of how that's used. Now, on the surface, you can argue that that's what that was for. But I think it does probably play more into the whole Crips and Bloods thing, because as you watch the movie, you learn very quickly that there's no such thing as good twin, bad twin when it comes to Smoke and Stack. Both of them are very much two sides of the same devious, decepting coin. Smoke is the one dressed in blue. He is the strong, silent type. He doesn't really make a lot of noise. He doesn't really take up a lot of space. He's very observant and he's very mindful of his environments and surroundings and what's going on around him. And because of that observational skill, he makes very quick decisions that are often very good decisions. And out of the two, he's the big brother. You know what I mean? They're twins, yes, but out of the two, he's the more responsible one, the more mature one, the one who kind of can get them out of their shitty situations. And it's illustrated throughout the film that Smoke has always gotten Stack out of shitty situations, even from when they were little kids. So that's who Smoke is. He's the strong, stern, silent type, but he's also with the shit. There's a scene in the movie where they just bought the mill to do their juke joint. Smoke goes into town to get some people who own the local grocery store to provide food and make a sign and do all of this stuff. And of course, he's going to pay them a whole lot of money to do it. He has all this illegal alcohol in the back of his truck, and he pays a little girl to sit and guard it. She honks the horn. He comes out. People are trying to ram his truck. Without question, without asking, without hesitation, pulls out his gun, shoots him right in the butt. He turns around, I got shot. And then he look and see who it is. Now keep in mind, if Smoke was the nice twin, he would have just been like, what you shoot me for? But the look on his face was like, oh shit, I fucked up. Immediate fear and terrifying expression on his face once he realized who he was stealing from. And then for no reason, he just shot his little homie that was with him, who was helping him trying to steal, just to say, you can't have an encounter with the Smoke Stack twins and not have nothing to show for it. So he's not the good one. He's crazy. He's batshit crazy. If anything, Smoke was the more sinister one because he's quick to act. He's going to shoot first and ask questions never, pretty much. It doesn't matter what the reason is you have behind it. You're not finna steal from me. You're not finna take advantage of me. None of that shit's gonna fly. And everybody knows it. So that's what's going on with Smoke in this particular scene. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, we go back to Stack. Stack is at a train station trying to gather up an old man who's known for just like playing his harmonica, and he does the blues very well. You know, he can play, he's a musician. He needs somebody to play in the juke joint with Sammy. So he persuades the guy to come to the show, and the two of them start playing in the train station. So they're gathering up the crowd. Smoke is gathering up the supplies, Stack is gathering up the crowd. So you get a bit of Stack's personality in this scene. He's very charismatic, he's very charming, he's very outgoing, he's very loud spoken, and he's very, you know, center of attention. And again, it's illustrated throughout the film that Smoke has had to get Stack out of shitty situations, probably because Stack doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. Stack probably talks too much, and because he has a slick mouth, he's always getting the two of them into trouble. So he can talk the talk, Smoke can walk the walk, if that makes sense. So Stack is gathering up this crowd of people. He's like, y'all want to see them? Tonight we got a juke joint. Here's where you can meet us at. This is the time. Everybody come out, show some support, show some love. You know, doing the shit that niggas do when they try to promote a party. So you definitely get two sides of their personalities here. And you also introduced to Haley Steinfeld's character, Mary, here. So Mary and Stack had a relationship going on. She's bitter at them for leaving town. They were in Chicago for a while. Her mom just passed away. And she was like, you didn't even send me no flowers. You didn't come and say hi. I wouldn't practically raise you. And he was like, shit, I ain't got nothing to do with me. I ain't got nothing to do with that. Get on somewhere. Because Haley Steinfeld's like the granddaughter of a mulatto. In this movie, they mentioned that like her grandfather was half black. So she's not like 100% white, and she can kind of pass. It's weird. But anyway, you also get a sneak peek of Smoke's relationship with Annie. Now, Annie is the local voodoo lady. She knows all about magic and spirits, and she conjures up herbs and healing serums and stuff like that. Smoke shows up to her house to put flowers on a grave that has a little baby handprint on it. So obviously he lost a kid. That was his and Annie's baby. He was like, you got all of these elixirs and potions to keep me safe, but you couldn't keep our baby girl safe? And she was like, man, don't put that shit on me. I've been keeping you safe ever since you left town with that little bag. And then she shows him a little bag of something called Mojo. And this is the thing that's been keeping him safe. So she talks to him. And then this is the part where the first like sex scene happens, and it kind of get a little freaky deaky. But and I was sitting next to my father, so it made me a little uncomfortable. But it is what it is. So those are just the dynamics between Haley, between Smoke and Stax. Not only their character dynamics, but also their love lives. So if you're looking at it from just the surface, Haley Steinfeld's curvaceous, slim fit, white woman who's very confident, very in tune with herself, and that's the type of woman that Stax is attracted to. Annie is built like just a regular black woman living in Mississippi. She's top heavy, long legs, really pretty face, dark skin, braided hair. She's into like dark magic and voodoo and stuff like that. So, you know, she comes off as like uncomfortably spooky and eerie, but that's the type of woman that Smoke is attracted to. And given the descriptions of their individual characters, they're so different from each other, but they play the same role. And then to see the women that they've fallen in love with is very telling on who's who. Like, there's no way you can get the two of them confused at this point. So, and again, I think Michael B. Jordan did a great job with playing those two very different people and coming off convincingly as two very different people. Now, at some point, shit does start to hit the fan, and I don't want to talk, again, I'm not trying to spoil too much, but I do want to talk about the vampires, obviously. They are running from Native Americans in the beginning when you first meet them. Actually, it's just one. And he runs into a Klansman's house to ask for refuge. So he's white, so he can pass off as, you know, whatever. But he is like, I need help, them Indians, they're coming after me. And of course, the Native Americans show up, and they're like, we're looking for somebody who's very, very dangerous, but since they're racist white people, they ain't trying to hear that. And the other Indians like, man, the sun's finna go down, we gotta go. So they're like, may God have mercy on your soul, or whatever. And he turns the other two racist white people into vampires. So when Sammy gets planned, the three of them show up, and it's like, we just want to come inside and spend our money and dance and sing. And the niggas at the door is like, nah, man, this ain't that. We can't, you know what I mean? Now, one thing I will say about the vampires is that they were very, very traditional. These aren't the Twilight vampires. These aren't the True Blood vampires. These are like old school Dracula ass vampires. They just happen to be like Irish or European or some shit. So they cannot gain access into the juke joint without being invited in. They tried to play a little bit of music for them. They tried to flash them their little money. None of that was working. They didn't want nothing to do with them, so they sent them packing. Stack tells Mary, hey man, go inside and talk to them and see if they got some money they're trying to spend. You know what I mean? I ain't, only color I care about is green. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck about none of that other shit. She's like, okay. Mistake number one, sending her out there. She goes out there, they read her like a book, and it doesn't take long for her to get manipulated by them, and she peeps that something is wrong, so she tries to go back inside, but because they're vampires, it's over with. Now, because Mary was in there once before, she comes back to the man at the door. His name is Cornbread. She's like, well, are you going to just let me stand out here? Or are you going to invite me in? Now, she doesn't say, are you going to invite me in? But she makes the gesture like, come on now. You going to just have me stand out here? And because he knows her and he trusts her, he's like, girl, come on in. Mistake number two. It doesn't take long for Mary to get Stack alone. And, of course, he gets bitten. They think that he's dead, and he turns. Not almost immediately, because he did lose a lot of blood, so it takes a minute for him to come to, but then Cornbread goofy ass goes, oh, I gotta use the bathroom. And the old man that picked up at the train station, his name is Delta Slim, is watching over the door. So Cornbread comes back to the juke joint, and at this point, Mary has run off. She's bitten Stack. He's in the back room dead. And Smoke tells everybody they gotta go home. So everybody who's in this juke joint, it's like 30, 40, 50 people in here. They all go outside to leave because they told them that they had to leave. Mary is already starting to peep that something is terribly, terribly wrong. She can't quite put her finger on it, but something is just not right about the way that Stack died. And when Mary ran out, she said, we gonna kill every last one of y'all. Who the fuck is we? You know? So when Cornbread comes back and they looking at him, and this part blew me, because this is when this can't be real reality sets in for the characters, not for the audience. We already know what's going on. Cornbread come up to the door. Delta Slim, nigga, where the fuck you been? I have to take a shit, man. What's going on? Something happened. We had to send everybody home. Oh, okay, well, I'll come in and help. Why you gotta, just let me come in and I'll come and help. And he's like, wait a minute, what you mean let you come in? You've been coming in and out all night. Just come. Why can't you just walk through the door? Why do you have to have one of us allow you access? What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, you've been coming in and out all night. What's stopping you from doing that right now? And he's like, look, man, that's just disrespectful. Y'all are like family. You don't just barge into your family's house without a proper invite. So just say that I can come in, and I can come in and help y'all with whatever y'all need me to help y'all with. And she's just like, nah, man, you've been coming in and out all night. What are you talking about? So now everybody else is starting to get freaked out. And he's like, well, at least let me pay my tab. He reaches out to hand Smoke some money. Smoke takes it. He grabs him, slings him outside, tries to bite him, but he gets shot in the face instead. And this is when shit starts to hit the fan, because Annie is like, I've only heard of this in theory. I've never seen it in real life. These are fucking vampires. And they're like, what do you mean? Immediately she goes to work. We need wooden stakes. We need garlic. We need silver. We need holy water. We need everything we can. And most importantly, we cannot invite any of them inside. They cannot hurt us if they are outside. So again, all those people that they sent out there, they got plucked off one by one. So now it's like a 30, 40 vampire army of people outside just waiting to be invited in. The lady whose husband owns the grocery store, she sends her husband, her name is Grace, she sends her husband out to go warm up the car, but of course he gets bitten. They done got into his head. They know about their daughter at the grocery store, so they're using that to manipulate her into either coming out or letting them come in. And then of course Stack, who's been bitten, gets tossed out, and he's trying to convince Smoke to now come outside or invite him in. And they're so good at manipulating you, because you look at their face, you hear their voice, and it's like, that's my husband, that's my brother, that's my best friend. But no, it's not. Every tactic that they used was to convince whoever was inside to either let them in or come out. And it almost worked a few times, but they had to seal off everything. And then Grace, out of anger, fear, paranoia, devastation, heartbreak, screams, "Come in, motherfuckers," because she's Asian, I don't know. And they bombard through. Now, I'm not going to keep going in with the spoilers. I do want to keep talking about just the little details, the finite points of the movie and what I found to be personally entertaining. But I just had to talk about the vampires initially, how they, gained access into the building and how shit really started to hit the fan. So the head honcho of vampires' name is Remick. He's Irish. So at some point, this whole thing is based off of music also. It's a heavy, heavy music influence, not just with the blues, but again, with all different forms of culture. So once the vampire army gets formed, they're outside doing step dancing to Irish folklore music. And it is the most unsettling, chilling thing I have ever seen, because they all have blood splattered all over their face. They all have the little claw nails and the sharp teeth. All of their eyes are glowing in the light. They're all drooling and slobbering, salivating. And it's just the most it was the most eerie thing I have ever seen. It didn't scare the shit out of me, but it made me very uncomfortable. Like, it was scary to the point where I'm just like, heart beating in my chest so fast I can't breathe. That's how bad it was. Because when they get inside, shit is gonna go horribly, horribly wrong. Now, at some point after they get through, they injure Remick, and all the other vampires react to it because they can feel what he's feeling. There was a young lady named Caroline who sings blues, and she sings and she hooks up with Sammy at some point. She's like, "They can feel his pain. If we hurt him, we hurt them." Okay, great. She gets bitten. The only ones who are left, no, Annie gets bitten. She made Smoke promise her that if she gets bitten, to kill her immediately and not let her turn over. Again, they lost their child together. She said, "I got somebody on the other side waiting for me, and they're waiting on you too. Promise me that you'll do this." And he's a man of his word. So as soon as she gets bit, again, he's no hesitation. He grabs the wooden stake, pew, pierces her, dead. Stack and Mary see it, they break down. "Oh my God, Annie, no." Because they're under the impression that, shit, I'm a vampire, I got all this power, I got all this strength and mobility, I can live forever, this is great. That's how they're looking at it. So they're devastated, they're heartbroken, and Stack is like, "Come on, Annie, let's get out of here." So they leave. And then Stack comes back to try to turn Smoke. But the thing that's stopping Smoke from turning, and I didn't peep this until after the fact, was the mojo around his neck that Annie had made. Because remember, she gave that to him to keep him safe. So Stack can't even bite Smoke. So Smoke tells Stack, "I can't kill you. You my brother. You're the only family that I have left. Just get out of here and never come back. Leave Sammy alone, leave me alone, leave everybody alone." And so Stack leaves. So now they gotta deal with Remick weird ass. And this nigga is crazy. He wants Sammy because Sammy has this power. Anytime he bites somebody, he takes in a little bit of them as a person, and that becomes part of his persona. So he wants Sammy because of his ability to play this music and attract these demons and conjure them up and bring the people together. It's a power, right? Sammy is like 15 years old, scared as shit. He doesn't know what to do. He's just trying to stay alive, and they just have to make it until the sun comes up. And the guitar that Sammy's been carrying around, that Stack originally told them was like a famous musician's guitar, turned out to be their abusive father's guitar. Sammy's also cousins with Smoke and Stack. He uses that to hit Remick in the head, and the silver from that guitar gets launched into his brain, and all of the other vampires who are now outside feel it, and they all fall to the ground. Cue the sun coming up, and they all burn in a crisp of ease. Now, they revealed a lot of information that leads to the ending of this movie and how we kind of, and I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. They give Smoke and Stack a lot of information. So, for example, the mill that they bought earlier that day where they built the juke joint in was owned by a Klansman. And Remick said, "These two guys that I just turned before I got here, that was his nephew. They already made plans to come back here and kill both of y'all and take everything back. So this isn't even y'all's place like that for real." Okay, that's fucked up, but it's Jim Crow, so I'm not surprised. And, they got the information about the grocery store daughter and, the fact that he lost his baby. You know what I mean? Just little stuff like that. So after everything is said and done, Smoke tells Sammy, "Just get out of here. Go home, drive, keep driving, and don't ever look back." Smoke with now having nothing to lose, nothing left to live for. And this is the part that kind of broke me a little bit, but it also gave me immense satisfaction. Smoke is a very damaged, very broken, very distraught individual. And at this point, he has nothing left to lose, nothing left to live for. He got his little cousin out of there. He saved who he could save, which is really just him. He lost his brother, he lost his girl, he lost his baby, he's losing his mind. So he gathers up any guns and ammunition that they have left, and he waits for the Klansmen to come. And he shoots and kills all of them. It's like 8 dudes, 10 dudes. And he kills every single one of them. Because if he's going to go out, he's going to go out fighting, swanging, slanging, banging. And I absolutely love that. It was so satisfying. Now, obviously, in the crossfire of things, he does get shot. It's a slow burning injury that leads to his ultimate death, right? And the head honcho Klansman is still there. He's still on the ground. He's whimpering. Smoke pulls out a cigarette, starts to smoke it, and he turns and he sees Annie with their baby. And she was like, I'll let you hold it if you put that cigarette out. As in, now's the time. We're waiting on you. So let's wrap this up and let's go. He looks down one last time at the Klansman, who has the audacity to say, hey man, I've got money, as in spare me my life and I will help you or I will pay whatever. Takes his machine gun, 16 holes in the chest. He don't give a fuck about none of that shit. Puts out the cigarette, reaches over to Annie, grabs his baby, looks back at her, and you can feel the sigh of relief that he takes from his chest, and it is the most satisfying thing to watch. Is it fucked up that he died? Absolutely. But when you think about it from the perspective of he has nothing left to live for, his only brother, his only family is a vampire, and he's long, long gone from here. His girl is dead. He had to take her life, he had to kill her. His baby, no more. There's nothing left for him. So the only way that he could really find that peace, that ultimate peace, that satisfying peace and satisfaction is to accept it, is to take it for what it is, the end of my life. I don't have to fight anymore. I don't have to be angry anymore. I don't have to worry anymore. I'm with the woman that I love. I'm with our daughter. I'm good. I don't have to worry about nothing else. I am good. And that was very, very satisfying. Cue Sammy, who goes back home. His face is all scratched up. He's covered in blood. He only got the neck of the guitar left. And his daddy, who's a preacher, is like, come on, son, put that guitar down. Let those demons rest. Come home. Say that you'll give it up. Promise me. And that's also where the movie began. So it's like one of those how did I get here moments, which you love seeing those in black films, right? And you think he finna turn his life over and do better and be a God-fearing man because he almost got himself killed, you know? But no, Sammy gets in the car and he drives away with the neck of the guitar and he leaves town and he goes to Chicago because that's where Smoke and Stack were for the past couple of years, getting their money up. And he spends the next 60 years as a famous blues musician playing music in Chicago. And apparently, according to the interviews that my oldest brother was watching, it's loosely inspired by a musician from the 1930s who allegedly sold his soul to the devil for fame and fortune and had to pay the ultimate sacrifice and price for that. So you could argue that it's based off of that story. But he's, an old man now. He's playing up at these bars in Chicago. He's doing his thing. He's happy. He's lived a long, fulfilling life. And at the end of his show, he gets one of his security guards like, hey, there's people out here who want to see you. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, man, that's fine. And you hear the security guard say, y'all can come on in. Immediately, you're like, oh, shit, there's a vampire out there. And who walks through the door but Stack and Mary? Stack explains to Sammy that Smoke let him live. He took Mary with him. They just ran off, and they've been living their immortal lives. Because, again, they're in love with each other, so they're not unsatisfied. They're very content with their situation. They're not bitter. They're not evil. They're not sinister. And that's the other thing. The other ironic thing is that, yes, Stack and Mary are vampires, but they're not sinister. They're not evil. Even Remick bit them and was trying to get them to convince everyone in the juke joint to come outside, they were basing it off of a newfound freedom, a newfound power, a newfound ability to come and go as you please, to live this immortal life as like gods and kings and queens and untouchable whoever's, you know? That's how they were always looking at it. Stack even says to him, "You my brother, I'm not living this new life without you. You have to join me in this new journey." So when they come into the restaurant, or they come into the bar where Sammy is sitting, as an old man, he recognized, and they haven't aged a day, right? They went from the 1930s aesthetic to the 1990s, which I thought was really, really funny. I thought that they looked hilarious because it was the 90s, right? But they aren't like, "We've come for your soul." You know what I mean? They really just came to say hello. They said, "We got all of your records. We love the blues stuff. We're not really fans of this electro shit. You know, we love what you do. We have all of your records. You know, you've aged. You've aged 60 years. There's still one more chance, one more opportunity. We can make you to where you will never age again. You can stay like this forever. You can keep doing what you're doing. You can tour. You can travel. You can influence the world. We can give you that right now." He's offering it to him as like a salutation. You know, it's not to be malicious or sadistic or sinister in any way, just to help out his family. That's his cousin, right? And Sammy is just very honest. He's like, "Man, look, I've done a lot of living and I ain't got too much left in me, but I think I'm okay. I think I'm good. I don't want to live forever. I want to live the life that I want to live and then be done with it." And they were like, "Okay, we respect that. But can you play for us real quick? You know, one time for just like the good old days." Sammy pulls out his guitar, plays them a little bit, and they are so drawn to it. And there's so much love and compassion there. And right before Stack and Mary leave, he drops $200 on the bar counter, gives Sammy a hug. And the way that he hugged him, he was like pressed into his neck. So I thought that he was going to bite him. You know, something in me was still like, he's a vampire, he's evil, but he's not. He just gave him a hug, he wished him luck, and they left. And right before they leave, Sammy says to Stack, "You know, I think about that night often. And up until the sun went down, I would have argued that it was the greatest day of my life." And Stack looks back at him and is like, "Yeah, man, me too. It was the last time I ever spent time with my brother. It was the last time I ever saw my brother. It was the last time I ever seen the sun come up. It was the greatest day of my life too." And that did something to me emotionally. Because even though Stack and Mary have come to terms with their situation and they've made peace with it, they're content with it, they seem to enjoy it almost, there's still so many things that Stack regrets. There's so many things that he probably wishes he could have done differently. There's so many things that he wished he could go back and say or do one last time. Because along with this great power and ability comes a lot of setbacks that will prevent you from just being able to exist in a normal functioning world. And yeah, they can live forever, and it takes a lot to kill them. You can't shoot them, you can't stab them, you can't bludgeon them, you can't outrun them. You know, you just better pray that you have some garlic and some wooden stakes nearby, because that's the only way you're really getting them to leave you the fuck alone. So with those minor setbacks comes a lot of major regret that I'm pretty sure Stax has always held on to. And even though he's content with his situation, there's a lot of things that he probably wishes were different. And everything started on that night that they just can never change. They're frozen in time to live and exist in that world for centuries, for the rest of eternity. And, you know, it pains you when you realize that he doesn't have any family left either. Yeah, he has Sammy. Yeah, he has Mary, but Sammy is an old man who's come to terms with his life is probably going to be over soon, and Mary, the love of his life. But that's it, you know. He needed his brother his entire life. His brother was his main protector. He stood up for him when he needed him to stand up for him. He protected him when he needed him to protect him. And he was down for the shit when the shit needed to be down for. And now he doesn't have that partner in crime anymore. And it's very, very difficult to come to terms with. But all of that is just the beauty of the artistic expression All of that plays into the overall plot and story. All of that is something for you as the audience to really absorb and think about and let it marinate so that you can have a better understanding of who these two characters are. And again, they're played by the same person. They're two completely different people and they're played by the same person. Michael B. Jordan deserves an award for this movie because he did such a good job. Now there's I'm stuttering. Obviously, there's some more finite details, a bit of a pinch and a patch there that can later be discussed at some other point. I might do a part 2 of this. I'm not sure yet, but more finite details about, the in-depth ideas of like the filming and the camera shots and angles and color schemes and things like that. But I really want to talk about the art of the movie, the story of the movie, the characters and how they develop, and those extreme differences between Smoke and Stack, and how Michael B. Jordan was able to execute both flawlessly. Playing twins is not that easy, especially when the twins are very, very different. So again, he deserves an award for this movie. But that's my whole shebang bang on the movie Sinners. Again, I try to keep it minimum to the spoilers. I know I gave away a lot of it, but I try to be as detailed as possible without giving away too much. So I apologize if you haven't seen it. I highly recommend that you do. Everybody's been talking about it for the past couple of days, and it just came out on Friday, so it's a great, great, great movie. Again, 9.5 out of 10. And that 0.5 comes from, like I said, there were some characters that I wish we could have spent more time with. I wish we could have gotten more Stack and Smoke together. I wish we could have gotten a bit more. They dove into their backstory, their tragic backstory a bit, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that come out. I would have liked to have seen evil Michael B. Jordan or Stack kind of do more sinister things. But I also think that would have taken away from his, just of his character. They're not sinners because they do evil things to people. They're sinners because they just do bad things every once in a while. They went to Chicago to work for a gang up there, Al Capone, I believe. Stole his money, stole his alcohol, stole his, goodies, and then came back to Mississippi to open up a juke joint to recover from all of that theft. And it's like, yeah, they do bad things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. And maybe that's really what it is. Just because you do bad things doesn't mean you're a bad person. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the fucking point. But that was my little quick interpretation of the movie Sinners. Again, great, 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 great movie. 9.5 out of 10. I would absolutely go see it again because I just want to experience it one more time. Vampires They did so good with the vampires. It felt like a classic horror vampire movie. It felt like something that you would see and it would just it lives on. You know what I'm saying? It's going to build its own legacy. It's going to come back year after year. They're going to play, The Exorcist and Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're going to put Sinners in that pot of scary ass movies to watch for the holidays, for Halloween, there's any kind of spooky season shit. Because that's the level of scary that it needs to be when talking about vampires. That traditional, let me in, pour some garlic, holy water on you, stab you with a stake, vampires. And I love it, I love it, I love it. I really, really did. I appreciated these level of vampires. I think that they were perfect. But again, thank you for those who have decided to come in and listen. Again, I'm sorry for any spoilers, but please, please, please don't let that discourage you from going to go see the film. I absolutely appreciate it. And until next time, I will speak to you all later. Oops.